Hello, NFT land. I'm Creatorius Rex, and we are back once again for the TWINN this week in NFT news. I do this every week with my co-host Scott Leach. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here too. Wow, this market is exploding. We're going to get right into it. So, for people who are watching, no big preamble today. We've got too much news to talk about. We're going to talk about market data. There's some big numbers that we want to discuss and what that means for the industry. We've got a lot of data on marketplaces. I know that's really interesting to a lot of folks, what's going on there. Obviously, some project updates. There's more than enough to talk about there, but we've got two we want to highlight. Hacks, security questions keep coming up. There's some really specific ones that I think it's really useful for folks in the industry to know. Brands and NFT lands, our recurring segment. Maybe we'll get to what's in your bag. We keep trying to get to a couple of these projects. We will eventually if we don't get to them today. Okay, so market data, January blew out numbers. Just so different than anything we felt before. I think if you're in the space, you feel the momentum, but it's different than the momentum we felt in August and September. August and September was like, it was really chaos. I think is the best way I can think about it. This actually, there's a ton of momentum, but it has a very different feel. So the first thing I'm going to bring up on the screen is the OpenSea volume numbers. Now, why do we look at OpenSea? OpenSea is a significant portion. Some people think it's 50%. Some people think it's 70%. Some people think it's 80% of all NFT transactions. That is not necessarily true today. We're going to talk a little bit about that and how one of these other marketplaces is making big news, but it's more than half of NFT trading, most likely. What we see here is that we had just shy, that the really tall bar to the right, that is the January Ethereum trading volume on OpenSea. And it's just shy of $5 billion. So 4.9 billion, far higher than the next highest one, which is over there to the left. That was August. And then we had September, and we thought, geez, we're not going to see numbers like that again. But we just blew it away in this last month. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been crazy, man. I think you said it well. The chaos was different over the summer than this. This feels a little bit more organized, and that there's some, we're hearing a lot more about investments and institutions moving into the space too. And obviously brands is something we talk a lot about. So I think that's part of that chaos, but more controlled chaos. And I think people are also getting smarter about this, right? We're starting to learn more about collecting and projects and things like that. And I think that's affecting it a little bit, but it's been just this last week has been insane. I mean, Bored Apes went from a week ago, it wasn't at 100 yet. And then it went over 100 and it was up around 120 almost.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Back down again, but it's still over 100.
Yeah.
And I think that's also really important. So we see these numbers for OpenSea. Now, OpenSea is going to predominantly be secondary sales. There's clearly people are minting, and those would be primary sales. But a lot of this is driven by secondary sales. And it's sometimes the secondary sales of things that have minted recently. And then sometimes it's some of these older projects like Bored Ape. Cool Cats has had a lot of trading volume recently. Azuki. I mean, there's a bunch of ones that have really done well lately. So even if we look at the August numbers, the actual total NFT trading volume is higher than that number on this chart because there was a lot of primary sales direct from websites from the mints. But there's no question about it. This was a very, very big month. We're talking about, halfway to 10 billion for the quarter after 31 days. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's really significant. I think everybody really felt it, that there's a really big comeback. You and I have talked about, some areas of why that might be, but let me just hit on some other data points here. So it's not just that the ETH volume was high, and it was, and that can be driven by just high priced JPEGs flowing. And we'll see that in some LooksRare data in a few minutes, but there's also more NFTs sold in this period. So this chart shows the total number of individual NFTs sold, also much higher than August and September. And you can see the August number was higher in terms of total Ethereum, but it was lower than September, slightly lower in terms of total number of NFTs sold. So
Gotcha.
we're also seeing just like high volume on a unit basis too. So
Yeah. Wow.
and registered users that have made transactions, so these active traders in the month, we're talking about, in this case, I think it's close to 600,000. It's over 500,000. I can't remember. I think it was like 590. It doesn't show exactly on here, but that's what that number means. And so even like you go back to August and September, which are really significant numbers over there. But what you found was there were a smaller number of wallets making a lot of these purchases. What this means is that the market's getting bigger. The active traders are getting bigger. There's more wallets engaged. And so one of the things that happened is there were fewer people buying a lot of NFTs, but each month more and more people have been active in the space. And now we really saw it come to pass in January, where so many of the people in the space were active. Plus there's been some new people who've entered.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, good data. Nice to see that.
All right. So I got other stuff. I got more.
Awesome.
More. This is the NFT transfer. And I like this chart because it says, it's just a different way to look at what's been going on, but this is a week-to-week project trackers for both 721s and 1155s. These are two different Ethereum protocols, 721 being the original, 1155s. Is employed for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
But it's also used not just on places like OpenSea and LooksRare and that type of thing, but it's also used on Polygon. But what we're seeing is you see that dip from August. We went down and October, we went back. We had a little bit of a spike going back up in October, and then down to the doldrums of early November. Everyone was in New York City. No one was buying NFTs. And then we started to see it rise again. We had some of these projects going up. And some larger ones too, like the Adidas did 30,000, right? It wasn't just 10,000 or 1,000 lots. And so we're seeing a lot more things transfer. This is going to be, some of these are going to be secondary market sales, but I thought that was also interesting. And then I wanted to point out this Polygon thing. So Polygon layer 2 on Ethereum.
Yep.
It does not have, this is OpenSea Polygon trading. It doesn't have as much of a spike as we saw on core layer 1 Ethereum, for January. Still up from December, but not significantly up. Polygon's had a pretty good year. I think most people would agree with that. There's a lot of projects that are looking at it that haven't deployed already, but it's still, it's not moving necessarily in sequence with activity on layer 1.
Yep. Interesting. Yeah, lots of I'm trying to connect the pieces and speculate on what's driving some of these numbers. I have noticed, I'm sure you have too, and others, there's a lot more. So we went through that August summer period where trying to get anything pre-mint and mint projects, there was a huge rush for that. And then we saw where lots of projects just weren't finishing or were getting rugged or dropping down to next to nothing after they were done. And then we saw, more recently, as things have picked up, we've seen people kind of gravitate towards some of the blue chips, for lack of a better term. But also I've been noticing a lot more folks trying to get in on, whether it's getting whitelisted or trying to mint stuff. That part feels more like it did last summer. And it seems like a lot more projects are actually minting out.
Yes.
I mean, even today, there was several times I went on to do basic transactions, since I'd say gas had spiked to 500 or something, and you're like, okay, something's minting somewhere right now.
I have to say, November gas was just like pleasurable. November, part of December, most of December, pretty good.
Yeah, so it's interesting times right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me bring something else up that I think is interesting. So we're in the data section. So anybody who's watching, I mean, if you're interested in what's going on from an NFT standpoint, I found this really interesting chart. Thomas M., who has a lot of dashboards up on TWINN Analytics, And I really like what this shows. This goes back to 2017 and it goes through this January. And what this is doing is it's comparing the US dollar versus ETH price for NFTs. And what we see is there's essentially no correlation, or it's in consistent correlation between ETH and US dollar value up through about January of 2021. And somewhere in the first quarter of 2021, we started seeing a pretty good mapping of US dollar to ETH. So as ETH goes up, the US dollar value goes up. And this is one of the questions a lot of people have. Are people thinking about the pricing in terms of
Yeah.
Are they thinking about it in terms of ETH? A lot of the folks who are most active on Twitter consider themselves in that degen crowd, and they've gone Ethereum native. And so they're really thinking, is this, how much ETH am I spending on this? Much more than dollar value. But we've seen much closer mapping. It's not always one-to-one, but we see this notional following now of Ethereum to US dollar for the value of NFTs.
Yeah. Yeah, this is super fascinating to me because I'm sure we're all like this, but my mind wants to try and comprehend what's happening and like, oh, what's driving this latest boom with NFTs? Is it because ETH has been down? Because that feels like what was happening back in, around May last year when ETH took a dive and then NFTs went bananas. And then ETH went up, and then towards the end of the year, and then NFTs sales seemed to dip. I know that that's some sort of cognitive bias happening, and that may not indicate what's actually driving those things, but it's interesting. I do notice with myself when I go to buy NFTs now, I tend to think of them ETH as ETH. I don't factor in the USD.
Yeah,
it's like I can't. That's an extra level of processing that jams up my instincts or something.
Yes, I understand that completely. I'm starting to think about it more that way. I think the only time it really factors in is when you're bringing fiat in, or you're expecting ETH out into fiat. Now,
I think you can be strategic too, right? If you have a bunch of USDC that you've been sitting on waiting for an opportunity, there could, you can convert it to ETH to buy that NFT at a discount if you think anyway.
Yeah, and there's sticky ETH prices, and there's a few other things that are going on. But we're really talking about Ethereum because Ethereum is most of the market, just like OpenSea is most of the NFT market overall. Ethereum is an even higher percentage of all of this, but we are seeing some of these other chains come up, and I don't know exactly how people are thinking about them, and if there's as much of a correlation. I think it wouldn't surprise me if there's more correlation between Ethereum and USD fluctuations in Ethereum than some of the other chains, because the other chains are they're not as broad based in terms of users, and maybe less mature in terms of the users and the velocity, but something that I hope that we can explore a little bit further going forward. Okay, so I promised that we would talk about marketplaces. And we've got a few stories here that I thought we would talk about. So the first one I thought was interesting. Ape Father, Twitter friend. So OpenSea just delisted the official Cool Pets collection instead of the fake one. OpenSea's been having some rough times lately. I try to give benefit of the doubt to OpenSea. First of all, like, people in the industry owe them a debt of gratitude because they basically scaled well enough to allow the market to take off last year. When everyone started to use OpenSea for lots of different projects, they were able to largely handle the capacity. They've had their issues, but for a company that literally 6 months ago had 15 people in it, really admirable what they've been able to do. And they've had their share of issues, but I think for the most part, they've been really important infrastructure. With that said, one of the things that they do try to do is they try to limit fraud on the platform. And one of the things they do, and they did this with us with the Ethereum project, is someone, like, immediately when they found out we're going to mint, they They grabbed a name on OpenSea. They created a collection just to try to sweep up a little ETH before people figured it out. But if you reach out to them, they will do a little due diligence and they'll take down the fraudulent ones. In this case, they were a little too aggressive because, well, I think they probably just fat fingered it. They took down the wrong collection. And then, so the fraudulent collection was like doubling down on Twitter, trying to get more people to buy it. I'm laughing about it. It's actually not funny if you're involved, but any thoughts on this?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of what you just said. There's a tendency that we want to bag on, OpenSea because everyone's using it and stuff's happening. But the point you just made, all this is new. They're working at a breakneck pace. There's tons of bad actors involved that are doing nefarious things. Like, we're early and this is how it goes, and it sucks if you're on the end that got the shaft, but I think it's just how it is. I mean, I worked at eBay for years and they still have problems with fraud around, people selling fake bags. Like, this is just the nature of some of this stuff, and it will get better, and then people will figure out new exploits, but I think it's how it goes.
And I'm glad you offered that perspective. And what I should do to give people a perspective who are watching this, I actually just clicked something inadvertently, but I did bring up Scott's NFT. So beautiful artwork. Anybody wants that, you can get that at OpenSea. Just go to the Niftorian project, the Niftorian Founders Collection. You'll be able to find it. And please don't go to one of the scam sites. So that was inadvertent, but it was a nice interlude, and it was just on brand because you were talking. It was your artwork.
Yeah, it works.
It would have been less elegant if it was someone else's.
Yeah, I think the thing here that it's easy to get caught up in this stuff and it's absolutely frustrating. And there's a lot of money at place right now. So it hurts to get robbed, but it's early. I don't think OpenSea's acting, intentionally doing anything wrong. I think they're just trying to do what they can with what they got, and stuff like this happens.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, not intentionally doing anything, because we have another OpenSea story. We talked about this at length last week, and actually within an hour of us having our recorded conversation, they reversed course. So the first thing they started with is they put this note out early last Wednesday morning and saying they're going to do all these limitations. Now, I was online when they put this out. I responded immediately saying, hey, this is really anti-artist, anti-independent creator. Because if you used your own contract, this didn't impact you. But if you were small and were using the standard contract, then it really did. But what happened was shortly thereafter, they said, okay, wait a second, we're going to reverse that, which is really the best thing they could have done. Because what I normally see people do when they have a admirable objective, right? And in this case, they'd done some analysis and they thought that this would help reduce fraud. Some of these fake projects that are being.
And we speculated that too when we.
Absolutely.
Week, right?
Okay. So they were trying to do that. And then they realized that they have this unintended consequence. And what I find a lot of people like to do, this is true across all industries, but in crypto, it seems to be very common, is they try to then say, oh, well, let's just tweak it. Right. And then what they do is we can fix that. And they add something else to the policy. And then they create another set of cascading unintended consequences. Almost always the best thing to do is to reverse the decision, think it through, scenario plan, and then move forward with something that's going to fit. And that's what they did.
Yeah, I think this is smart. And again, they're listening. Like this is how no one wants to hear it when there's so much at stake, but like, this is how you build products and learn. Like you fail forward is a term for a reason. Like you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, and hopefully you correct in a way that benefits the user and the product. It seems like they're doing that. I mean, some of these, they're getting called out because some of these mistakes are huge, and they're at least from the user base, because they affect livelihoods and projects and things that have been in the works for a long time. And
Okay. All right. Well, that's enough on OpenSea for today. Let's talk about other marketplaces. Right. And one of the ones I want to bring up, did you hear the headline, or did you see the headline that LooksRare now has more trading volume than OpenSea?
I didn't read that specific headline, but I heard a lot about the wash trading to earn
Ah,
rewards.
and that's what we have. So if we look at the daily volume, this is
Mhm.
denominated in dollars, LooksRare versus OpenSea. Oh my gosh! LooksRare launched in the first week of, or maybe just after the first week in January. You can see where it starts going there, and then all of the sudden, it's doing more daily dollar volume than OpenSea. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is why every DeFi project has rewards, right? It's meant to incent people to play in the ecosystem. Now, sometimes it seems strange and sort of incestual the way in which you can earn these rewards. It's like a hack or something, but it's got people paying attention to LooksRare now and using it. And it got me looking at it because I heard some of this buzz, and they have some great features like make an offer to an entire collection. That's a fantastic feature that I've used several times over the last week.
Oh yeah,
Because
have you bought
it's
anything with that?
yeah, it's awesome. I can make an offer and it goes to everyone holding that collection. It's also great if you have stuff that you want to, you might have stuff you want to list at the floor, but you might just need to turn something over right now. And if you have a reasonable offer waiting on a collection, like it makes
Yeah,
NFT, it
creates more
makes it a
liquidity.
lot easier to get in and out of stuff. But it does also creates and I normally don't go for this stuff because I find that it just bites me and it doesn't align with what excites me about NFTs, but it's easy to get into the arbitrage game when you see this happening and like, oh, it's over here on OpenSea and it's here, I can
Right.
buy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you can avoid getting burned. So, but just like in case people aren't familiar with wash trading, I think a lot of people who watch this probably are. But wash trading is this idea of transitioning between wallets, oftentimes with the same owner or with people who know each other, who are not actually trying to change custody. What they're trying to do is they're trying to give a signal to the market around some value extraction. Now, usually when we do wash trading, we think of this as sort of insider trading, but it's it's not really insider trading in the way that you think about it. Like insider trading is, I know this thing is going to go up because they're going to do an announcement. This would be the same with stocks or with NFTs. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy now when it's low, or I know something bad is going to come out. Like we've had a lot of issues around people doing claims of racism in projects, or that it's going to be rugged or something like that. Okay, I want to sell it. Like I have information that this news is going to come out. I'm going to sell it before that would be like more traditional insider trading. Wash trading is something a little bit different because what you're trying to do is you're actually not getting rid of the asset. You're just trading it between different wallets. And normally what you're trying to do, or normally what people are trying to do, is they're trying to raise the perception of value of that project by going back and forth. And then they will actually relist it at a lower price, but it's much higher than it would have been before their wash trading. And so then they artificially increase the amount of ETH they can, or the return they can extract from it. Some people do it like this negative wash trading too, but I don't want to get into that because it's more complicated.
Yeah. So in this case, LooksRare is giving people their coin for trades. So
So
certain
this is
collections that
even
are very,
different, right? So the
yes. So
normally
people are
wash
doing it
trading
to
is not a
take
product
advantage of LooksRare, not any other user.
because they
It
have
could
an incentive.
mislead. Yeah, it could mislead another user because they might see this activity and think, oh, LooksRare is the platform, but a lot of this activity might not be genuine. But it still achieves the objective of getting people to look at LooksRare and consider the product. So
Well, maybe. I mean, I think that so they have this incentive that if you were actually doing trading in certain types of projects,
yep,
NFT projects, that you were actually getting this spiff of LooksRare. And so people
yep,
basically
yep.
did the arbitrage and they're like, oh, well, this is actually more than the cost of trading these between my wallets. I should just keep doing this back and forth and capture the free Looks ERC20 tokens.
Yeah, and I think I mean, this is just the whole thing is dangerous to me because part of it's I think just the way my mind doesn't work very well. But the percentages you could get bit doing this. I think depending on what the rewards pool depending on what it is for the specific project, and depending on what the creator take is on that project. Looks has a smaller take on each sale than OpenSea, which is another good reason why I started looking at LooksRare. But I think you could also get, it seems like a lot of effort and a possibility to be burned. But that said, I haven't tried it or investigated it closely. Obviously, it's working for someone.
Oh yeah, and I think it was pretty simple. It's that you're basically just transferring ETH between two wallets you own.
Yeah.
And you're transferring the NFT between two wallets you own, and then as long as your looks reward was higher than the cost of gas, it was net positive. Now this is going to change behavior a little bit in a few days, because I think it's the 6th or the 12th, maybe it's the 12th that they launched. It's the rewards are going to be half of what they were. So they have their own halving after 30 days. So I think this will change a little bit. I understand what you're saying, is that it has, among other things, it has made people take a look at LooksRare, which is a new NFT marketplace. But I don't think that this is a great branding exercise for them. I think it's in general, I think it's somewhat negative.
Yeah, I don't think it's great. I don't think it's as shady as it sounds, but it's not ideal. I do like some of the stuff they're doing, though.
It's not an accurate market signal, but yes, they have the one thing there's some features that they're missing, but they have some features that should have been on places like OpenSea a long time ago. So,
yeah, and I mean, I got the fact that I think that we're in such a weird time where you, like, when these coins, when they did the airdrop for anyone that did trading on OpenSea for a certain period of time, it's an interesting idea to bring on people who were trading during the peak of the NFT boom, right? Are no longer the peak, but at that time when it was starting out, those folks have knowledge and insight and bags, and like, awesome, get them into your marketplace doing some stuff. So I think I think their plan, they had to know this was going to happen, but I think it's still like there's someone probably still making a case for it, because now that those people are doing that, they're probably still going to sell their other stuff on there because the take's better, and this make an offer to a whole collection. Like, there's a lot of good features here. I think in general it's great because it's going to create competition, and OpenSea is going to have to step up their game, and opportunity.
Yes. Okay, so let's bring another story up. We see here this, people can go and check this out. Sachens on Twitter, who is the head of Coinbase's new NFT marketplace, demonstrated what the user experience is going to be for buying a new NFT. Did you have a chance to look at this, by the way, to watch this video?
No, I haven't looked at this closely.
Okay, so there are a few things about it. Basically, it's not going to be too dissimilar from what people are familiar with. It did have a nice way to look at it. The UI was very clean. One of the most interesting things about it is you can use your Coinbase wallet to purchase, and you are able to use it across multiple chains. Now, he only showed an Ethereum-based example, so we haven't seen it on Tezos or Solana or anything. And it's not clear to me that that's going to be part of the initial release. And let's remember that they said in September, October, when they first announced this, that they're going to have it available by the end of 2021.
Yeah.
And now it's sometime in Q1 of 2022. But clearly, with this demonstration, they're getting closer to it, and they're ready to roll out. So I think this is really significant. It's a nice UI, but I think when it pops up with your little Coinbase wallet and you want to do that, you're still going to sign it, potentially, or can sign the contract with one of your other crypto wallets, depending on what chain you're buying off of. I think it's really interesting that they're opening this up to not just wallet by Coinbase, but like your Coinbase account.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, I mean, this is what a lot of folks were speculating about, right? I wonder what it's going to do for other NFT NFTs on other chains. So like, Solana, there's a bunch of stuff going on there, but it's not taken off the way that ETH NFTs have. I wonder, for folks that come in, at what point does the chain become a transparent or agnostic, where you don't even look at it anymore? You just look at the NFT, so that future users, it doesn't matter. An NFT is an NFT. I'm curious to see if that's going to happen, or if we'll always be aware. Obviously, there are folks in the know who are always going to be aware. But if my mom starts doing this, is she going to not care? Is an NFT just an NFT? And is that the path we're going down in the future? It's interesting.
Well, I think I would say that we might get to that position sometime in the near term, but it will not last, because all these chains are not going to last. So now it might come back, which we settle on 5 or 6 chains, which are going to be the ones that everybody wants to do. And then anything else will be very niche. But I think all the chains look, not all of them, but many of the chains look very healthy right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that'll be true 18 or 24 months from now. And so some of those things are different. And then we'll just have to see.
That's a good point. I do wonder though, if even that, I wonder about, like, is someone going to come up with there's going to be when a chain is dumping, is there going to be some exodus method where you can like burn and hop to another chain with your tokens? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens.
I think some projects will try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to salvage it, though. We'll see that. We've already seen things like this where people are just like, "Oh, we have to save the project. Let's do this."
Sure.
That. Yep. I could absolutely see somebody saying, "Oh yeah, let's move this over to another chain." Just if you wanted to move to Ethereum, you could just drop 1155s to everybody. It could be done relatively cost effectively. It would still be costly to do, but it might be a way to save a project that otherwise is going to be destroyed because a chain just becomes unsustainable.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's enough for marketplaces today. We covered a lot of ground there. Let's talk about projects, and I'm going to start with one that you know a little bit about.
Yes.
Pixel Vault. So Pixel Vault was in the news today because they just raised $100 million, which I think for an NFT project is the most that has been raised so far.
Yeah.
That's venture funding.
Yeah. And it's crazy that this is new and it's done that. And not only is this new, the really unique thing about this project is this whole project is powered by NFTs. I mean, that their content is based on NFTs, right? So it's I love this project for that reason. Like, we hear all this flack about all the blowback and, $1 million JPEGs. What the hell's wrong with people? Beanie Babies, all this kind of stuff. This is a really awesome use case to me of taking art and IP ownership that comes along with NFTs and enables that, and then using it to create more content built on the IP established by NFTs of other projects. I think it's awesome. And I think that it does good things for the space. I know there's been
actually just tell people just a little bit about the background, how this came to be and what the structure is.
Sure. So the way this started was they created a comic book, and the comic book stars punks in it. Those are crypto punks drawn as comic book characters on this scene you're seeing here. So they did that, and then they sold the comic book, and you could then they added a bunch of interesting mechanics around, kind of DeFi like mechanics. You could stake your comic book, you could burn your comic book for I forget what you could originally burn for, maybe for a mint pass for meta heroes, which were original generative superheroes that they intend to build other experiences around. They did an issue 2 that involved Bored Apes. So they're using, PFP projects that grant copyright to do this stuff. And they're either licensing those or owning them through a DAO. It's just neat. They're just building a whole content world out of here. There's the comic book, there's the meta heroes universe, there's this planetary DAO. that's tied to them, the Meta Heroes universe. Lots and lots of stuff going on. They do lots of airdrops if you have their projects. I love their stuff. I've got everything they do. I try and get a hold of, and I just am excited
full
about
disclosure. I think you own a Meta Hero. You own some of the. What you own?
I own a Meta Hero. I own an issue 1 comic, 2 issue 2 comics. I own some of the planets, and I keep getting more planets for something. I haven't really looked that closely at that. I probably should. I know the price on those is going kind of nuts.
It came out as one of the more complex projects because there was different types of staking. There's basically game theory involved for how you could get the most value out of it. Whether you wanted the physical, whether you wanted to just have the digital, and then moving into Meta Hero. So I think it's a really interesting project just from that perspective. It's also interesting too because one of the founders was known to be Beanie. Beanie Maxi, some people know him, like fairly Twitter famous in the NFT space. He originally, I think there were 17 CryptoPunks, which were basically put in a trust to sort of start the project. And he contributed like 16 of them, or all but one of them, like he put in, which was even at that time last spring was worth several $1 million.
Yeah.
And so that gave it a little bit of a boost. He's come under fire recently because I think some people figured out who he was in real life and said, oh, he's got something of a questionable background from a business standpoint. Interestingly enough, he's part of this GM Capital. GM Capital said he's resigned. He's no longer part of it. And then they brought some new marketing person on who happens to own a Bored Ape that Beanie used to own. So maybe he's still around. And then the other thing around Punk's comics is it originally was designed as basically the adventures of Beanie being the central character. And now like he's got big ownership and he's somewhat toxic. But it might be hard for them to like totally outrun that.
I think there was some I shouldn't even say this because I don't know exactly what the story is, but I know there was some tension. I had heard that there was some tension between him and some of the folks in that project as well. I don't. Yeah,
there might have been. So they say that he divested from the project completely. That was one of the things that they brought out in the discussion around this. But let's get back to like what Pixel Vault is doing. So it's an important project because it was one of the more innovative ones almost a year ago now. They've done some really interesting things. But they also, they end quote, they have a mandate to build a decentralized Disney, which in my mind means co-creation and co-ownership with avid fans in order to hold you to task, who don't participate in the economics, but participate in the appreciation of their characters that are in the world. This idea of a decentralized Disney, I think, is a really interesting summary of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those things that sounds really great, and then it raises lots of just questions about how the hell you even do that, or what that means. But this whole idea of building, one of the things we're seeing a lot is IP ownership. You can get that with some of these PFP projects, right? And people have come down on different sides of that, whether that makes sense or not. Gary Vee said he doesn't like that. He doesn't do that with his project because he wants to control the IP and the story. I think there's something super neat about it. I don't know that it'll be successful, but I love the idea that people can build worlds around this content. And that's incredibly exciting to me. And it makes me think like if this stuff existed before Lucas sold to Disney, like obviously that was a lot of money, but like if you imagined a property like Star Wars that granted you copyright to create new content out of it, how much fantastic, bizarre stuff we would have gotten from that. But instead we're sort of, we have to wait for Disney to do something that we hope we like.
I know. I think it takes them too long. They're really slow.
Yeah.
I mean,
someone's going to do something with one of these apes and it's going to be terrible and give it a bad reputation at some point. Yeah, but the fact that these guys were smart and they own the ones they own and they're building it out this way, I think it's really, really cool. And it gets me so excited, and it's just neat to see people doing stuff that's pushing it forward, regardless of, like, I know there's lots of interesting characters involved in all this stuff and individuals who have questionable backgrounds. That stuff aside, I know, like, it's hard to separate those things, but I think they're doing some things here that are really helping the space in general, that aren't just about this project. Never to me felt like a cash grab, regardless of who was involved. Like the content is good, the comic is good, there's real artists contributing to it. It just, I've been digging it.
Okay, cool. We'll leave it at that. And I think it's really interesting. Certainly one to watch. And the lead investors included partners from a venture firm, Adam Bain and Dick Costello, both from the senior executive team at Twitter. Costello is former CEO of Twitter. Adam Bain was COO. After Dorsey came back. So we've got some people who are really well connected in the Web 2 world. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. But certainly there's people who are taking this very seriously. The other project I just want to talk about really quickly was Cool Pets.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about it earlier, sort of got taken down, but that's, let me remove that for a second. Get rid of my, this is the problem. We got to turn all these things off. Bring that back up. So Cool Pets, I want to bring it up, not so much because of what it's going to be. They're going to have like a little cool verse, which I think they're thinking it's a game metaverse type of thing. Cool Cats is the project. Cool Pets is the extension of this. Now, in between, they introduced the milk token. So they've got an ERC20. I wanted to ask you about this idea of expanding the user base. So Bored Ape, I think, has the reputation for having done this the most efficiently, right? And they did it by giving away mutants to ape holders, or the serum, so that you could make mutants, and then making all those assets saleable. So it made a lot of people feel good about it, but it also added, I think there's 17,000 mutants now, 17, maybe almost 18,000, but it added like something like 10,000 new people to the project. And there's always this question about these projects and rarity, like, are we diluting the value of this type of thing? But this is one of the challenges a lot of these projects have, is that you want to create something that is rare enough so that it increases in value, so that your core holders will like it. But at some point, it becomes difficult because you need new revenue. And 10,000 people isn't necessarily enough, because a bunch of those are just holding it and they're not engaged in the community. Try to get more people in. I mean, this has been a boon for Bored Ape. What's going to happen here is that half of the Cool Cats, 10,000, are going to go to existing holders. So they get the eggs so they can hatch their pets. And then the other half were part of a public sale, which is going to happen in just a couple of days. I pushed it back a little bit. But just, I want to get your general thoughts on this, about expanding these projects and doing it in a way that people feel like it's net positive, as opposed to diluting the value of their scarce items.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard. It's a double-edged sword. I have a Cool Cat, and I've been trying to figure out if I got an egg or how to get an egg, and their site's been down. And I do get the feeling that it feels like it's adding more excitement without having to figure out how to solve one of the fundamental NFT things, which is, what the hell do we do with this stuff? Like, we got these Cool Cats, what do we do now? Like, okay, well, now you get a cool pet. It feels like every bad sequel to every bad movie and every toy my kids get. But I do think in some cases it can be done in a thoughtful way, and if it gives them what they need to build something more engaging, that's good. I feel like Cool Cats is large enough that they could probably support this. I think the floor price, well, it was around 15. I think they've dipped a little today or the last couple of days. So it's not like when Crypto Dads did this, their floor price was pretty low, right? So now you have Crypto Moms and Crypto Dads. It was a different story, I think. But here, They could probably support it. I would like to just see more, and maybe they're thinking about this. I just want to see more innovation in terms of like, is there some other way to get here? Can I collect enough cool cats or cool pets that if I burn them, I can get a cool cat? I know the cool cats are all spoken for, but I don't know, some other mechanism that's a little bit. I would just like to see people think about it that way.
Yeah. Well, I think in general, this is going to be inevitable for a lot of these projects. I think Bored Ape, if it didn't have the mutants, would have been stuck a little bit because as your price goes up, there's just fewer people to get engaged. There's not a way to do onboarding of people at a lower price point. And so, I mean, that's been like tremendous for a lot of folks because mutants are now up over 20 ETH. And I think they were trading around 3.5 the first week that people were using the serum to create the mutants. And they went down below that for a while, but then like we're stuck around 4 for a long time. It's created a lot of value. It's created a lot of energy. And then as the projects become more successful, it's created a way for people to get engaged who didn't have 50 ETH at the time or 40 ETH, or now it would be 100 ETH to be involved.
Yeah, and I liked the serum thing was cool. Like if you got the serum and you applied it to your ape, that was a fun thing to do, to see how it turned out and how it was derived from your ape. I like that kind of stuff. And as someone who collects, I love it when these things happen, especially if it's airdropped. Like, oh, cool, I got something new. No. And the fact that they're doing anything at all is great. I'm just excited for whatever the next innovation is.
Well, I think it was necessary for them, not just to like keep energy in the project, to generate a little bit more revenue so that they could invest more. You know, that's an additional 10,000 they're basically selling, generate more revenue so they can invest in the project. And I think it was really important because they've got those milk tokens. They need more people to hold those. And so all these things together made it a necessity, whether it's a net good, net positive, who knows, but I can see the strategy. So we're running long as we normally do. So I'm just going to skip ahead. And I just want to hit on a couple brands in NFT lands. And we'll get to the hacks and security next week, and some of the bag items, because there's so much to talk about. Sure. But I thought the first thing I thought I would bring up was Coachella. So they're doing something that's kind of interesting. So first of all, it's noteworthy that it's on Solana. So you don't see that very often, but they're focused on the low gas fees is a thing. They have these 10 NFTs that they're auctioning off. So it's an auction, not a fixed price, which give you lifetime access to Coachella. So if you hold that NFT, you get into Coachella anytime you want. And then they have these two other collections. One which is, I think it's 10,000. The other, maybe it's 20,000. I think it's 10,000 and 1,000. The 10,000 one is $60. It's just like images from Coachella. And the one that's only 1,000, it's $180, but you can actually claim a physical print along with it. But here we have another big brand that's using NFTs to integrate it with its business model.
And every week I preface my thing about my sensitivity to the brand thing. This I really like because this is like pure straight up utility. I like, if I like going to Coachella and I can now get a lifetime pass, like, are you kidding me? That's awesome. And I have ownership for it and can transfer it to another person in the future. This is, I think, getting very close to probably what we'll start to see. Whatever happens in the meantime with PFP projects and art projects and various things, I think this is the kind of utility that we can expect to see moving into the future, and that works just well with the nature of NFTs. Like, I dig this.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think this is also very cool. I think it's a very good way to experiment with this. I'm 10 lifetime passes, I think is not that interesting, but I think they could have done something more interesting than that. But I think it's a cool experiment. So we have this other thing where that I thought was interesting for RollingStone. So they're doing an integration with the Super Bowl, and they're going to mint, at the Super Bowl. they're doing it in conjunction with a number of prominent NFT projects. So Dead Fellas was one of them, Boss Beauties, Kid 8. Let's see if I've got another one over here. Giant Swan, Jeff Manning. So a number of different projects here and artists, Amani LaRussa. So, Rolling Stone's already done a couple of things in the space. They're certainly covering it. They were doing a project, or they did some integration with Bored Ape, but I don't even remember what it was a few weeks ago. But I thought this was very interesting because it ties together the Super Bowl, so the NFL is getting involved, Rolling Stone, and a number of different projects.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a big NFT presence at the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how relevant Rolling Stone still is.
I think that's true as well. I mean, but they're a brand, a pre-internet brand, and they're potentially using NFTs to regain relevance. And I could look at another brand that was prominent around the time that Rolling Stone was, and that's Atari. Which has these big collabs now. Sandbox being the most notable, but there's some other ones you see from time to time. So they're really, and so I wonder if NFTs, one of the interesting things is they're giving new life to some of these brands.
Yeah, that I think is absolutely true. And we've talked about this before. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but I know we've talked about it offline. But this whole idea of also what happens to NFT projects that die, and are those going to get resurrected in the future? It really does open the door for kind of bringing stuff back to life, whether it's old brands or old NFT projects or whatever. And I think it's back to what I've said this before. I think if someone is approaching it from an authentic point of view, like looking at the space and seeing what the, not necessarily trying to predict the future, but seeing how the community is gathering around these things and trying to see past the bad actors, I think they can do a lot with this stuff. I think it's the folks that come in that just are trying to be relevant or cash grab that rarely works.
Yeah. I don't know that this will save Rolling Stone or give them like real relevancy, but I know there's a lot of projects that are looking for relevancy, and maybe being able to attach to a known brand helps them in the interim as they're trying to surf up to maybe more prominent current brands. I think there was a time when Rolling Stone was a cultural touchstone. I don't believe that's true as much today, but they're still important in some circles. So one more thing in terms of what I guess is still a big brand, but what used to be a bigger brand is New Balance. And I just bring this up because, we know what Adidas has done. We know Nike's making a play. They bought Artifact not too long ago. And we just talked about Walmart doing their own thing where they basically had a new trademark application saying how they're going to use this, or how they're going to use their trademark in the metaverse so that they wouldn't come into conflict with people trying to steal that position from them. This isn't necessarily they're going to do anything. It doesn't mean anything's necessarily on the books, but I would expect based on what's happened with Adidas and Nike, New Balance does have some plans, and they're very specific about this. So they're going to use their trademark of New Balance in the metaverse for downloadable virtual goods, featuring footwear, clothing, sports bags. They're going to have retail store services. So they're going to have accessories for use in virtual environments. And so this seems a little bit like aping in, and it doesn't, and I don't think of New Balance as having the cultural cachet of Nike and Adidas. I think I'm safe in saying that they're not on the same level. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean there's not a real play for them here. And at the very least, from a defensive position, everyone should probably be doing.
Yeah. I mean, they could partner with crypto dads.
maybe
dad's wearing New Balances. That's a thing.
Maybe Runner's World, or maybe there's some things that they could do.
Yeah, I think at this point it's the equivalent. That thing is the equivalent of buying a URL back in the 90s, right? Like you just do it. And see what happens.
Yeah. File for your existing trademarks, file for protection for these use cases, buy your .eth address or addresses. And then you're just from there, then it's just option value. You can use those if you decide to. And if it doesn't work in strategy, you don't have to. I think that's right. And that's why we talk about brands and NFT lands every week, because if so many interesting challenges that they face in this space, maybe opportunities, but they have risks that some of the native projects don't have. And so it's just always
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Smart.
All right, Scott, I think we're going to call it a day.
All righty. Yeah, that's good. That was a fast one. Maybe not. Maybe it's the same. Maybe it just felt
it's
fast.
About the same, but we covered a lot of ground, and we would have covered more. But I thought hopefully, like, a lot of people got some good use out of that. And we'll make sure if everyone has any comments or they have questions about these things, just post them in the comments. Please like and subscribe. I think I always forget to tell people to do that. We're here every week. Follow Scott Leach on the Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at CreatoriusRex, and go check out the Niftorian project. We'll have some updates on that next week. We started the accelerator this week, but more on that next week. We'll carve out a little time to chat. Anything else you want to promote today, Scott?
No, I'm excited about the Niftorius stuff. Just exciting times right now.
All right. Cool. All right, everybody in the NFT land. Until next week, happy hunting. Bye-bye.